After a 7-year absence from filmmaking, director Miloš Forman, whose films include One That Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Amadeus, has returned to the screen with his take on the life of pornographer Larry Flynt. The film has received both strong reviews and some criticism from people who are concerned about the nature of Larry Flynt, but it has already won 3 Golden Globes, including one for Forman, and it is expected to win a slew of nominations on Tuesday when the Oscars are announced. Joining me now, Miloš Forman. I am pleased to have him here. And first, when Sam Nunn left here, you walked out and you said, I wish I'd been here.
I think he was wrong. I think, it's to let these Central European countries, Poland, Czech Republic, and Hungary, just to hang up in the air, up to grabs. I think that can cause much more tragedies, in the future. Because they can't be in no man's land. They either belong to Western culture or Eastern culture. And the moment, why the Russian hawks are now, saying, no, don't take them to NATO, is just, wait, now we are not strong enough to grab them back. Give us time. And then they will do it, with the help of the former communists in this country.
Because of the... One more. Because of the tanks that you have seen.
Yes, I did.
You still fear Russia strong without NATO support to defend Czechoslovakia, Poland?
Oh, yes, very much so. Very much so, because if it's nobody's territory, then, it's a very rich territory and very good to grab, to have. And Russia was always expansionist for centuries.
Look at the history, you say, and learn from your history.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the film, if you want to.
I would love to, yes.
All right, but first let's talk about the controversy.
Yes. Controversy, listen, this controversy is created, and I think maliciously, based on such a totally false premise. Because The People versus Larry Flynt, the film, is as much about pornography as is Romeo and Juliet about teenage suicide.
I got you. So,
you know what I mean?
What's it about then, in your judgment as the filmmaker?
Oh, it's about a very fascinating ambiguities and contradictions and controversies in life and characters and people themselves. It's about this mind-boggling paradox when this man like Larry Flynt publishing this magazine, and I don't have any argument about the tastelessness of the magazine, that suddenly he is the one to whom, we owe the very important decision of the Supreme Court of the United States about our freedoms. I think that's such a mind-boggling paradox. It's just fascinating.
You said in a speech to the National Press Club, I have no argument with those who find some of the contents of Hustler objectionable. I myself find some of its stuff objectionable. I had never bought Hustler in my life. When I was preparing the film and had to go through endless amounts of Hustler, I cringed. Men as well as women are often portrayed on his pages with brutish vulgarity, sexual and otherwise. Then why make a film about Larry Flynt?
Because this case he brought to the Supreme Court resulted in a very, very important decision about the freedom of expression. And I'm telling you, I know from my life experience, freedom of the press is the cornerstone of democracy. It's not elections. They can be manipulated if you don't have a free press. It's not a free market. Hitler had a free market. It's the freedom of the press. And if you open the door to the censorship a crack, it will never stay open a crack. When you let the gene of censorship out of the bottle, you'll never put him back. And it will have a devastating effect on the quality of life. Not only that life becomes very boring, but life becomes very cruel. Because under the censorship, anybody finally who didn't agree with the official ideology and the official taste and official regulations is enemy of state and will be silenced. And if you can't, if people who are doing atrocious things because they have power, if they are not afraid that tomorrow they will read about it in the newspapers or on television, you are only encouraging this cruelty.
You make 2 points in the National Press Club speech and in other places in which you have responded to Gloria Steinem and others. The first point you make is that Larry Flynt is full of ambiguities, and you compare not Flynt with Schindler, Oskar Schindler, but you say Oskar Schindler was a man who did some interesting things and important things for those facing the Holocaust, but also was a man of ambiguity. What's the ambiguity about Larry Flynt?
I don't know who he really is. And that's what fascinates me. Is he really a conscious, courageous fighter for our freedoms? Or is he just a smut peddler who is using cowardly the First Amendment, to hide behind it, to sell more dirty magazines? Or is it possible that he's both? And if he's both, which one he's more? These kind of ambiguities were always fascinating for writers, playwrights, filmmakers. That's what's
interesting about him.
That's right.
And you don't know? What's your hunch about Larry Flynt? That he's both?
I think he's both, and he's one day more this and one day more that, and it all depends.
Okay, because the other side would say he's always a smut peddler, and he was only doing it because we
like to put labels, so that we can get rid of the problem, right?
You say in the end of your speech, the real hero of my film is not a person, but
Supreme Court of the United States.
Because in a moment of important decision, it chose freedom.
Because they rise to their best when provoked, challenged by the worst. And that's rare, Charlie. That's rare. Because the legislature in Germany, in Russia, in Czech Republic, in Poland, countries very civilized and cultured, when they were challenged by Nazis and the communists, the legislatures buckled and opened the door to censorship. And I know what happened.
And the other point you make, because I'm going to go to Gloria Steinem in a moment here, the other point you make is that they always go after the targets that people don't particularly like in the first place in an engagement of censorship. If you want to censor, start with somebody that nobody wants to defend very much. Yes?
Well, they always go on targets. They know people will applaud them. Okay. And who would not applaud if I promise you to clean the streets from the smut? Of course, everybody applauded. But then, suddenly, during the Nazis, not only pornographers and prostitutes and homosexuals and lesbians were perverts, suddenly Jews, blacks, gypsies, for the communists, Christians, Muslims, the whole Western culture was perverse. I couldn't buy Hemingway or Faulkner or Shakespeare. I couldn't buy for 20 years.
Roll tape. Gloria Steinem on this show after Larry Flynt appeared some weeks earlier.
I sat in the audience and watched this film, and because I know the images of pain and degradation and torture and, I mean, it's hard to express what's in Hustler. I can't tell you how heartbroken I felt to think that somebody like Flynt would be made into a First Amendment hero when the publisher of a Ku Klux Klan magazine or of a Nazi, rag of some kind would not.
Who have also, in your argument, done
exactly the same thing.
Same thing. They have made First Amendment arguments.
Yes, the two much more important First Amendment cases have come out of Klansmen marching in Skokie and Nazis in Illinois, this is not a very important ruling. It only has to do with the right to parody a public figure. And to aggrandize him as, a free speech hero is a joke.
Have you raised these points with the filmmaker, Milos Forman?
No. He says he's never read Hustler. He says with pride that he has never opened an issue of Hustler. Now, that means he doesn't know what he's defending. But I think that if Flynt had the same reputation as he, for Jews, being an anti-Semite, being a racist, he would have read, he would have looked to see what he's defending.
What do you say to Gloria Steinem? As you have not said, or you've said some of the things in response to her piece in the New York Times.
I don't know how to say it politely, but she's stating as a fact that I said that I never read Hustler. I always said that I never bought Hustler, and that's the truth. Of course I read Hustler. When I was preparing the film, I read tons of Hustler. How does she dare to state that as a fact? It's to compare these things, it's ridiculous because we are talking about printed page. She's talking about organizations which caused already that millions, tens of millions of people lost their lives. That's a big difference. How can she compare that? I still didn't see in my whole life one picture which I believe an adult person can't see. If she's talking about that we didn't show enough, this monstrosity and these terrible things, disgusting and like that, because that's very important for the education of the audience about the character of Hustler. First of all, the film is not about Hustler and pornography, but that's besides the point. Well, if she thought that it's so important to educate the public what Hustler is about, to see these pictures, why she didn't bring them and show them on your show?
She did. I didn't show them.
You see, if I insisted to show this picture in my film, the film would never be made. And the message which I hoped to get across to the audience about the free speech and First Amendment would not be heard.
This point ought to be made. You're concerned about this and you're fighting back, A, because you want to say, I want to tell you what my film is about, number one, but number two, you're worried about something else, that somehow the criticism of this film becomes something other than the film itself.
Yeah, I think it smells foul to me, this kind of attacks. Because, I sympathize with Ms. Steinem, with her problem and argument with Hustler magazine. I think, and we are very clear in the film that it's tasteless, it's brutal, it's vulgar, right?
Right.
But, I don't need to salivate over these pictures to show it to the audience. I don't understand why I'm criticized not being dirty enough.
Let me turn now to the film itself. Casting. Courtney Love.
That's a dream team of cast. Courtney Love, Woody Harrelson, and Edward Norton. I don't think I've ever worked with such a team.
Edward Norton plays the lawyer to Larry Flynt.
Yes.
Harrelson plays Larry Flynt. Courtney plays Thea. Your idea to select Courtney?
I'll tell you, I didn't know Courtney at all. When she was brought in by the casting director, Francine Meisler, I didn't know that about her rock and roll background at all, nothing. But after a few moments, I knew that I am in the presence of a fascinating personality. And then later, when we did some readings and some screen tests, I realized that she is enormously talented actress. It was not a question in my mind.
Did the studios buy her right off?
No, because she was not enough name for the studio, first of all, and they were scared also that of her past stories, and they claimed that they can't find an insurance company to insure her.
Could not.
That could, but I found insurance.
They were worried that she may be into drugs or something.
Yeah.
Is that what it was?
No, if you can't insure the main protagonist, you are in trouble.
Yeah.
If something happens.
Whatever the problem is.
Yes, whatever. So we found insurance company, and she gave me her word that she will not betray us, and she kept her word 100%. She was amazing. She was amazing.
Should win some kind of Academy Award.
That would make me feel very happy. But I don't think we will.
You don't think you will because you think...
Oh, that is a very strong and orchestrated attempt to hurt this film.
By whom? By whom?
As far as I know, a spokesman for NOW was on CNN.
National Organization of Women?
Yes, was on Crossfire. And they stated publicly that all they want is to discourage the Academy voters to reward with any nomination or award this film. They even took... Entertainment Weekly said that it's the first time in the history of Academy Awards that an anti-film ad was taken in the Academy campaign, in the trade paper, in Variety.
An entire page?
Entire page, for your consideration, and then was reprinted Ms. Steinem article. It scares a lot of people. Controversies,
Where do you rank this film in terms of the other films you've made?
I'll tell you, because of these attacks on this film, probably I'm most proud of this film.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo Nest.
Oh, I love all my films. They are all my children, but none of my children was attacked so senselessly and maliciously than this one.
Have you had an opportunity to debate Gloria Steinem?
No.
Do you shrink from that or not?
No, I am not. I'm just afraid that she's a better demagogue than I am.
So you don't want to do it?
Oh, well, I would do it, but I know that I will lose because I can't argument. It's difficult to fight with somebody who hits below the belt, especially when the fighter is a woman.
Yeah. When you came out of this, knowing Larry Flynt, he's even has a cameo role in the film as a judge.
Yeah.
And boy, you got some good performances. The mayor's wife.
Yes.
Terrific. I mean, she turns in a terrific performance as Ruth Carter Stapleton.
Yes.
Ed Norton, we already knew he was good from Primal Fear or whatever that film was.
What about the judge, the black judge?
Who's wonderful.
He's a real judge. Yarmy Bailey.
Okay.
He's a legend in Memphis.
Roll tape. I just want to show you this film in case you haven't seen it, because Milos Forman is a great director, and here is what he has done here. We'll show you a couple of clips showing different sides of it. The first one shows Courtney Love and Woody Harrelson in the one clip we have with them together. Here it is.
How could you misunderstand me?
Well, see, I was wondering, because I thought...
I don't want to get married and stop the way that we live. The way that we live is great.
Is that good directing or good acting, or both?
Oh, that's good acting.
Yeah, they're better than you thought they were.
Yes, they fascinated me. I very often during this film, they were better than I possibly imagined.
Larry Flynt, have you changed your... Now that you've known him, now that you've worked with him, what do you think of him?
He's still an enigma for me. The fact is that I didn't change at all my opinion about his taste. And
do you ever sit and talk with him about it and say, was it just a business? Is that what you were doing? Because some of this stuff is just really beyond...
Yes, but that was a very interesting discussion, you know. He said, listen, what am I... I asked him, I said, what am I doing? You know, if in a restaurant they want to, you know, whet people's appetite to, you know, enjoy the food, so they put nice cloth and nice china and beautifully served dishes. All I'm doing is to make self-satisfaction to some lonely man more pleasant. And... you know, that whole question, and I don't want to talk about it because the film is not about pornography. Right. Nobody has to be afraid that after seeing the film, he will feel an urge to go run in the streets and buy the magazine, you know. So that's a totally different subject. Yeah. I will discuss it with Ms. Steinem.
And the case that went to the Supreme Court was really what was about a parody of
oh, it was
Falwell.
Not about pornography at all, that case.
About Falwell and a parody.
It was about the freedom to satirize and mock public figures
like Larry,
in the press. Yeah,
like Jerry Falwell.
Yes.
All right. This film, and all you want people to leave this film. You fervently hope that these actors and this director have come together to leave the audience with what? An interesting character.
Yes, to be entertained, to have a good time.
I mean, you know, it's a fascinating story. I mean, you couldn't have picked a more interesting guy who, because of the depravity of what he did, at the same time, coming from a small town, how this magazine was founded, the battles he fought, how outrageous he was, which she's a woman, his wife died of AIDS, was a bisexual at best.
The love story of these two people is mind-boggling for me. Yeah. But the main thing is that people should realize that we are taking our freedoms too much for granted. We think that that's the only commodity for which we don't have to pay anything. And that's very dangerous. Freedom is not cheap.
Milos Forman. As we go out, we'll run another clip here, the last clip from this film. Thank you, my friend. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.